Well, hello. My name is Carol Brown Earl, and this is my story of how I came to where I am today. I'm going to start from the very beginning, but first I want to tell you a story about two little girls, Gail and Kai. Gail was the older by 2.5 years, and Kai was the youngest. They had what was a bright future as they were living in upper class, and the world was to be their playground. Their dad made very good money and was also mayor of the town they grew up in, which was Wayne, New Jersey. Just like a lot of kids, they loved to jump on beds and furniture and do things they shouldn't do as long as mom didn't see or catch them, right? And they were typical kids, like most preschoolers were, and did the same sort of things that they did. Anyway, one day the world was kind of turned upside down for the younger child, Kai. Jumping on the bed almost became a fatal accident for Kai. You see, one day, and no one really knows how much time had gone by, but Kai's mom had happened to go by the bedroom and she saw her laying on the floor, not moving. So her mom just picked her up, brought her into the bathroom, put a cold washcloth on her, and went back into the living room where she had been reading a magazine with her mom, sat on the couch, and picked up her magazine again to continue reading. And her her mom just yelled, "Oh my God, Kai's blue!" And so with that, of course, her mom looked down and found out that yeah, in fact, she was blue. So she yelled right away for her husband, Kai's dad, and he came rushing in to find out what was wrong. And when he saw what was going on, he took Kai from her mom's arms and ran to the bedroom where he began CPR to try to get air into her. During all this time, he'd told his wife to call the ambulance, and they arrived, well, minutes later. Not quite minutes, but a little while. It always takes a little bit for the ambulance to get there. But once they got there, the workers got out their oxygen mask, and they began to put it on her face, and keeping in mind her eyes were open the entire time, so it was thought that she could see, just wasn't breathing right, and she took in a great big breath of air, and she started breathing again. And from that day on, she was always watched over. No one ever knew what would happen if she had severe brain damage due to the lack of oxygen for such a long time or what. So there was a really strong bond that built between Kai and her dad. The next part of this story is a little bit about Gail, her older sister, because she's the one who had pushed her off the bed. But she had her own trauma going on, and no one really knew about it because she had overheard a conversation between her mom and dad. And back then, there wasn't much, you didn't hear a lot about having abortions. And they were apparently, her mom was pregnant, and they were talking about getting rid of the baby. So Gail heard that and just thought that they were going to get rid of one of the kids. So that said, that started years and years of issues for Kai because Gail always thought that one of them were going to go. So Gail figured, get rid of Kai. She'd chase her around the house, inside and out, with knives and everything else every day. It was a really bad situation. Even a neighbor told her mom that she saw Gail running around chasing me with a knife outside. And so it wasn't really until Kai's late 20s or early 20s or so, somewhere in there, where she really acknowledged what was going on and what had happened. But anyway, so their mom and dad, they eventually did divorce, and so the mom had to go to work, and both Gail and Kai were left to their own devices every day after school. So for the next 10 years, I lived in fear of my life. My sister wanted me dead, and she made no bones about it, trying to make that happen. And that's why even today I have such a fear of anything sharp that could cut me, for Gail would constantly chase me with knives every day of my childhood. I had to learn how to survive at a very early age. Yes, I am Kai. I was born in 1953 and left home in 1971 in my junior year of high school. Chapter 1. I moved to Columbia, Maryland in 1971. My mom lost the house. Her husband had passed without ever paying the taxes on the house. I spent my last year in school where I didn't know a soul. Lots happened during the next 10 years. However, that's another story within itself. Here are a couple highlights. I married when I was 21, had 2 little girls. I went briefly to college in 1975 and studied political science. Loved political science even to this day. I was separated in 76, later only to divorce, and was remarried in 1981 and had 2 more little girls. My first 2 children were kidnapped in 1983, where I spent 24 hours in sheer hell, only to think that they might be decapitated and lie in a ditch somewhere. However, finally that next day a police officer did find them. Their father had come from California, I was in Illinois, to grab my 2 little girls. I had no money to fight custody battle across the country, so the short story here is that they remained in California with their father and stepmother, and only to be told that I had abandoned them. So even today, to this day, I'm still fighting that issue and trying to convince them that I did never abandon. Chapter 2. The next decade and a half or so was okay. I was living a fairly normal life, raising 2 little girls and looking after a husband. We lived in many places. The companies my husband worked for always sending him to new locations to fix other branch offices. He always did such a fine job. I told him to stop doing such a good job, and they'd stop moving us. To date, I've moved 37 times in my life. And each of all those moves have their own stories, too. But we're going to move on. In 1987, I started a part-time job with a fundraising company. I had set up many, many daycares, giving them all the tools they needed to raise money for their centers. I was very successful with this. I came to be known later on down the road that I was known as the daycare queen of Nashville, Tennessee. In 1989, my husband quit his job to put me on the road with fundraising full time. I was making more than he was working only 2 days a week. I was working 2 days a week, making more than he was working for a whole week. So we then decided to open our own fundraising company, and we were very successful. I put all the other national fundraising companies out of business in our neck of the woods. All the schools we helped loved the mom and pop, hands-on, that we gave our customers, and life was good. 1990, I also discovered my God-given gift that I could take photos of anything and make them look like $1 million. I loved shooting. I went on to become a professional journalist, photographer, and I even worked for Bristol Motor Speedway for three years shooting cars. Well, that was my true love. I really loved shooting fast-moving cars. 2001, somewhere in there, things started to go downhill with my marriage. We were separated for a little while, and he actually wound up having a major heart attack and died. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing like a life-threatening event to, pull you back together and close again, make everything understandable and what life's really about. And had he lived, we would be back together again. But that's a sad story within itself, too. Third chapter. In 2006, through various moves and trying to put my life back together, I wound up moving to Maryville, Tennessee, where one of my daughters was living. I had no idea what I was going to do. I spent so many years in sales of various sorts of jobs. This is a short list. Photographer, sold mobile homes, photojournalist for newspaper, which included shooting for BMS Round Track. Sold internet, newspaper, and TV for CBS commercial businesses, and track photographer for Thunder Valley, Bristol, Tennessee. I had a knack for outproducing anyone at any job that I did. What to do with this talent at this point, I had no idea. So Therefore, upon looking through the local newspaper, I saw a job for a taxi driver at the local airport, McGee Tyson. I did apply and I did get the job. I loved driving. I always wanted to drive. So I thought, oh, what the heck? I'm not doing much of anything. I'm going to give it a shot, right? And it was very exciting. I loved the people I met and made an excellent income. Unbelievable how much money I made. But a month into this, I met a man who also had worked for corporate America, I guess you could say, and was taking a break just like me from all the madness and craziness. So we both hit it off real big. And by December 2007, we were married. He was my third husband and my best. From our working at the airport, we also began to pick up people that were always going from the bus station directly to the airport. So we started asking them, what they were doing. It was just kind of strange. Pick them up at the airport, they just flew in, now they're going to the bus stop. One or two people, okay, but no, this is happening all the time. And we found out that they were what's called professional drivers. They were picking up all kinds of tractors, bobtails, utility trucks, Class A motorhomes, garbage trucks, utility trucks, you name it. And they would pick them up from the manufacturer and drive them to the distributor, who then would sell them locally. Well, we wanted in on that, driving all over the country. So we started to do that, and I'll tell you what, I saw so many different sites across the country, and I got so many amazing pictures. I have an arsenal of photography from across America. It's under chillphotos.net if you want to go see. And that's not only but just a drop in the bucket. I still have thousands of pictures I've not been put up there yet. We delivered in all the states, well, except Hawaii and Alaska, and even went to Canada 8 times. We slept through the days and drove at night. We'd be on the road for 3 weeks at a time and home for just 1 week. And this went on for 8 years. In 2014, my husband began to get sick. This was shortly after my dad passed away, January 1st of 2014. That was a huge loss for me. My dad and I, we were so close, and to this day, I feel lost without him. But that's another story for another time, and it's a long one. I also lost my sister in 2014, and apparently from a brown recluse bite that she tried to take care of herself, and it didn't work. So she wound up passing away, and she and herself and I, that's another long story too. But as my husband began to get weaker, we spent the entire summer of 2014 going back and forth to Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville, trying to get him a new heart. He had congestive heart failure. But the long and the short of that was they couldn't get him qualified after months and months of tests galore because his circulatory system was just too compromised. So we decided to try to fix it. One of the doctors said they could take care of that. And this was in December, but it backfired. And he passed away December 30th, 2014. Chapter 4, My Reckoning. 2015 hit, and I am so totally lost. I've now lost 2 husbands, all my grandparents, both parents, my sister, my uncles, and aunts. Well, there is one aunt out there somewhere, but I have no idea where. Basically, I'm it. The next on the feeding chain. So I have no family to turn to. My dad and my husband were my rocks and were always there to help me. Whether it be to talk to or help with a problem, they were just always there. My kids, 4 girls and 11 grandchildren, were spread all over the country, and I wasn't close to any of them either. I lived my life for whatever work I was committed to at the time. By the end of February, I found myself in the hospital for 5 days. Dang near had a breakdown. My church was my sole support unit, and I thank Heavenly Father for them. Still in 2015, I went on the best that I could. Still so unsure of where I was going and how I was going to get to where I was going to. I had a few mini strokes. This was good and bad. After so much time, a lifetime of unstableness, I found out why I always had such a hard time of dealing with the world in general. You see, my family, my mom, my dad, my uncles, cousins, everybody, they all had these superior intellects. And so I was always wondering what was wrong with me. Why do I have such a hard time thinking? Why does it take me a lot of time to get anything into my thick head? Well, I found out. You know that accident that I talked to you about that I had when I was a kid, where my sister tried to kill me? Well, it caused ischemia. I had this in my brain. It's where little blood vessels had collapsed in my head. It was the root of all evil to my thought process. I had had this test done in the early 80s that showed I had issues with reading, writing, communication, but my innate intelligence was superior to those with even graduates from doctoral degrees. Excuse me. So now understanding the problem that I had, excuse me, need a little sip of water, and realizing what I needed to do to get information in and use it in and get it to be able to use it to benefit me. And it does still take a little bit of time to implement, but once I get it in, you know, the world's got to look out, because once I have this information in me, there is no stopping me. The universe is my playground. So, Chapter 5. In 2016, I set out to conquer the internet and internet marketing. Well, that was hard. Not knowing a thing about it or even where to start, I spent an obscene amount of money trying all kinds of programs. Nothing really seemed to work. I had nothing that I could put together to make it happen. I just wasted more and more time on pipe dreams of people telling me, do this and you'll be all right, do that and you'll be okay. So frustration set in, the mental gymnastics I was going through, man, I needed David or my dad to help me. And they were all gone. Depression, frustration, aggravation became the only friends I knew then at that time. Bad idea, right? So by November of 2016, I had a young lady from our church come to live with me. She was intellectually challenged and going downhill herself. She had been abused by her parents for 30 years. She was never allowed to better her mind or learn the way any other normal kids did. And nothing. I mean, she was used as a slave in her own household. And she's got so many talents. It's unbelievable. But she was really stuck in a bad situation. So our church managed to get us together, and she moved in with me, and we both started working on each other's needs. And I think it's a blessing that God must have had a hand in this relationship, because it works. So in 2017, excuse me, I sold my home, and it was a wonderful home. But being in that home, it was the retirement home that David and I had bought. And it was way too much work for me, not to mention the upkeep and money for it, because we actually had a 5.5-acre farm. So I packed up, bring Valerie with me, and we moved to Bristol, Virginia. I knew this area so well because I raised my last 2 kids in the area, so at least I felt like I was, in a sense, going home. But just prior to doing all this, I had stumbled across a 7-figure marketer named Mark Malone that seemed to have all the best tools and knowledge that I needed. So with that, I took on the chore to listen and learn to all he had to offer, and it was wonderful. So now, today, where I'm at, my final chapter, July 2017, moved to Bristol, spent 2.5 months in a hotel till I found a home here. September 2017, I moved into our new home and purchased the home on November 1st. Then I got back to my internet January 2018, full time, not just pulling about here and there. Started implementing the proper tools and necessary actions I had been taught to be successful online. And today my future is bright and I feel whole for the first time in my life. I have finally found the right place to be in order to have the rest of my life's goals complete. My goal in life has been to be able to finally have a solid relationship with not only my children, but with my grandchildren as well. I'm now well on my way. I'll now be able to see them whenever I want to, and as they're spread all over the U.S., I'll be able to leave them something when I pass, enabling their lives to be solid too, and free to live their lives to the best that they can, and be happy and free. This will be my lifetime goal to them. So God bless everyone. Thank you for listening. But I do have one more thing I want to share. I want to share how I start each one of my days now. What I do, this is how I start each day. I get up and I take care of me. It's important to take care of you first. Things you do for yourself, your body, your mind. Take care of all of that first. And then I recite this saying 20 times. Or sometimes I'll say it 5 times here, 5 times there, just throughout the day. Make sure I have this in me plenty of times. And it says, money comes easily and frequently to me. Every single day I receive huge amounts of money. I love money and money loves me. I'm a money magnet. I'm a money magnet. And you'll find how this can change your lives, guys. The brain is such a wonderful tool that it actually takes this information and believes it to be true. And who knows how, but somehow it guides you into the path that you want to go. So you do receive huge amounts of money in your life. So after that, then yes, I go to work on my internet business. So God bless. Thank you all for listening, and please have a wonderful day. Bye for now.